Oh, flooding in. Fantastic. Hey, everyone. We're just getting ready. So please let us know if you're a regular on the webinar. Let us know where you're calling in from, either in the chat. And please don't be shy. There's an option in the chat to do all panelists and attendees. So please say hi. Hi. And usually we have a bunch of shy folk on the call, but it's a bumper call. We're actually a bit scared that we might hit the max on the webinar limit. So
if you're in, you're in.
Yeah, you're in. You're solid. Don't drop your internet connection.
It's a really exciting webinar today. And if you're just joining us, please let us know where you're calling in from, and feel free to type in the chat or the Q&A. But if you are using the chat, as Clive mentioned, don't be shy. Ask a question. Some others like to see what others are asking. That way we can share our answers back with everyone else.
And so we see South Africa, UK, Barcelona. I think that, yeah, so when you put there's a drop down. So choose the drop down where it says panelists and attendees. I think that's how you can do it. Ukraine, it's a bumper crowd, and we can see the room filling up.
California, Phoenix, New York, Boston.
And some people have raised their hands. We will get started on the hour. We'll give a few minutes for people to come in. Maybe in the chat, if you raise your hand, could you let us know why? If it's something that is a question, throw it in the chat and we will get to it. If we don't answer your questions as we go through, there's a lot to cover, but if we don't answer your questions on the way through, we will definitely get back to you in person. In person? That's probably not going to happen. Not with everyone, but we will send a personal email.
Personal.
Yeah. And today, so we've had, Sweden, Sydney, Italy. That's great. Really fantastic. It's good to see a broad crowd. Ireland, Bolivia, Budapest.
Yeah, we even have Mexico,
fantastic.
Canada.
Really great to have you guys here. Thank you so much for joining. Ukraine.
Some familiar
Belgium.
Names and some new.
Poland, Romania.
So we'll give everybody about 2 more minutes.
And then we will get started.
And if you have any questions
France.
Now, we might be able
Belgium,
to answer
Netherlands,
them.
Bulgaria.
Yeah.
Kuwait, South Africa, UAE, Austria, UK, Brazil. Fantastic. And I'm not sure, so if you can or can't see them. Can somebody just type in whether you can see these so that we don't have to say them? Brazil, Singapore, Philippines. You can. Fantastic. Cape Town, South Africa, Ireland.
Cool.
I can stop saying them. See them all. Great. We're flickering a bit. We will try and stay a little bit more still. And tell us how the audio is as well. Are we coming through loud and clear, or are we not? I see. So some people have got the hang of it. So it says all panelists and then all panelists and attendees. So some of them are coming through and some of them are not. But okay, and you can see our slides. We so far up on the board we have BIM management made simple. This is going to be a good one. You ready for this one, Louis?
Yeah, let's start. Let's go.
We've hit the hour. So welcome to the webinar, everyone. I'm Clive.
And I'm Louis. Thanks for joining.
And today we're going to talk about BIM planning made simple. It's been pretty exciting. We've had over the time about 25 webinars, some with partners around the world, but most of them have focused on one specific topic of what we're trying to solve in this big workflow.
Yeah, we've even had some education partners share.
Some of the universities that we work with.
Yeah, some professors and students even have shared how they're using LOD Planner within their curriculum. So that's been very interesting to see on an education and student perspective as well.
So an advert there, if you have any universities that would like to get started, let us know and we can put them in touch with our partner manager. It's all free programs, so free licenses to education. That's a given. But what we're interested in today is talking about the whole workflow, because we've been able to optimize everything and put it into a 30-minute slot. So do you think we can fit in 3 modules and an introduction in 30 minutes?
As long as it's simple and easy.
Let's find out. Let's find out. So our mantra, our motto, it's on the backs of our shirts, Smart Lean BIM. It's our trademark. It's about the right BIM at the right time, by the right people, but specifically for the right reasons. And if you've been on a webinar before, you're probably bored of hearing this, but this is the real reason why we get out of bed every morning. And we want to help our industry to get to this place. It's a real passion and it's a real thing and it can really happen.
Right.
Today we'll have an introduction talking about why we're here. We'll have the first part, which is BIM execution plans. And rather than being put in the bottom of a drawer, but creating this time something that's useful.
Right. We'll also talk about BIM scopes, not just that you can understand or the person that can understand them, but everyone. And
that would be pretty cool.
Also agree on. So that's the ultimate goal.
Makes it easier if everyone agrees.
Right.
And then BIM timelines that really manage themselves. It's not dictated by one person. It's actually collaborative and across the board.
Yeah, it could be created by a couple of people. So
we will see in this demo.
Yeah.
BIM is used for a lot of different things. Yeah?
Yeah, they could be.
But the models that are created for lots of different purposes, therefore. So a marketing model, is that the same 3D model as you might use for clash detection?
Probably not.
Probably not. And not the same one that's used even in facilities either.
Definitely not. Yeah.
So there's more and less different aspects that are required for all of these different BIM uses. And this is a problem in our industry. It's a problem because there's already a lot of miscommunication, and we're introducing this new concept of BIM, still new, been around 20 odd years, but it's still new for a lot of teams. And this has been a real challenge, and it's actually supposed to be saving us time and money, and it's estimated to actually cost us quite a lot. That's because owners have a different opinion of what they would like in BIM, them versus the architect versus the contractor. And if we don't have alignment, we're going to come into some serious problems.
Right. And it really starts at the beginning where that misalignment can be. So, that contract, the BIM execution plan, this is the very beginning of how to get there. And when we do attempt to create that BIM execution plan, we start looking at how do we do that? What is there a tool that can help us, or guidelines or standards? So when we look at the AEC industry, we have plenty of authoring, analysis, use tools, a lot of which you're probably using today. And each one of those have different standards. Each one of those have different workflows. And when we go back to the planning, we use a lot of management tools that are very good.
They're great. They're traditional tools.
Their own purposes. But when it comes to BIM, we tend to find workarounds to try to make them work for us. We find ourselves creating these huge spreadsheets and trying to interact with them.
They're fantastic tools. They're fantastic tools, but they're not dedicated for our industry.
Right.
And they're also disconnected. You have a document or a spreadsheet or a PDF contract or a schedule, a program or a Trello board. There are completely different tools. Mm-hmm. And so this has been a challenge, and this inefficient working has been something that we've really heard from the industry, and that's what we focused on and trying to solve. This question came up: what if it was a dedicated solution?
What if there was a dedicated
What if there was
solution,
one?
Right?
And it solved those challenges, and if it was online, you had templates in the solution, and it was really collaborative. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is collaboration. Yeah. Nobody can really agree to something that they don't understand or they don't have input in. So when we went through this workflow, it was all about how can we bring more people into the decision-making process and make sure that they truly understand what they're signing up to, mm-hmm. and make it collaborative enough so that it's not just collaborative in the creation stage, but also collaborative in the execution stage. And so when you go through, and we'll see some of the planning tools inside of LOD Planner, is really exciting how it's not just one person that's using it. It's actually a team of people that are using it.
And it's just how to engage, how do we get people to see it?
The solution that we look at is 3 modules, one called Plan, Scope, and Track. We'll go through a demo of each of those. It is free to join. The first module, BIM Execution Planning. The concept here is if you are able to collaborate and not just dictate, then we can have an agreement between many parties. We can also have a training and a platform that people can learn from, not just experience a contract that they can't understand.
Yeah, one of the most common things I hear from our customers is they're either in the process of updating templates or creating standards for their company. So how can we make that more efficient for those who are just getting started? It is something that takes time to create, and we have templates available. We have a lot of that head start kind of feeling when you first enter the app, especially in this module.
But it's also revolving around your own standards. So if you have something already, it's a platform, a framework to build on that and to continuously improve what you do have already. And yes, this will be recorded and we will be sharing everything, in slides included afterwards, so you can share it with your teams. The second module is the scoping module. Being able to visually agree on who does what, when, and why. It's tied to a reason, and it's visual. We found that this is kind of like an aha moment for us, was instead of writing a sentence about what might happen.
This is a very visual way to come in, whether you're a subcontractor, project manager, contractor, architect, owner, to come in and visually see who is doing what at what specific time and what their real responsibility is.
And then the third module, it's about tracking what you've just agreed to. And the great thing is that everything that you've scoped and assigned to people generates a task automatically. And that task can be scheduled out so that a program of delivery and assignments can be made. And then instead of a team having to update thousands of lines on a Gantt chart by one person, it's actually a distributed and very easy to manage. And we joke about it, but it manages itself because everybody manages their own tasks, and simply just drags and drops on a board to be able to update progress.
Yeah, it's definitely a good opportunity to get teams who are used to scheduling by themselves, isolated, and then now it's just they can continue doing that, but it's all in one place where we can just merge all that together with a couple filters. So let's get started with part one.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so we're going to dip into some demos. So I'm going to stop the video. Part one.
How do we sometimes plan? So today, like we mentioned earlier, we have a number of tools of how we can define what we're going to use, what we're going to
share it around people.
And then the communication. How do we get feedback? How do we typically agree on a contract?
Sometimes it can be unmanageable when we're sending it around like this. And where does it end up? So when you create a BIM execution plan, where does it end up?
Right. So I know where it ends up, in a drawer. How do I get someone to look at my BIM execution plan? Well, one, is it 80 pages long, and they probably don't want to read the whole thing if they have those 3 lines that they're looking for. How can you really get them to engage on that?
And you've done this before. How does that feel?
Yeah, it is very difficult. No one looks at it. It's very frustrating for teams to get involved.
We create online BIM execution plans using templates, and how we then communicate between our teams, between yourself and myself, acting as different parties in different companies, and then how we would go through an approval process. Yeah, right. Okay, let me flip to, now you can see LOD Planner on the screen. These are all different projects that we might be involved with, but the project, my project, aptly named, here we can see the dashboard when we first go into a project. And the only thing that we've set up in this project are the teams. So we can see who is on each team and what permissions they have, whether you want them to just view the project or whether you want them to get deep, whether it's editing or management rights.
Yeah, a lot of people like to look at this dashboard as their main page of contact information. Typically in a BIM execution plan, you find a spreadsheet with contacts, and here a simple invite can get them all in here, and they manage their own contacts, and we can also print this into that contract. So very easily can we get a team going.
Once you've invited people to your project, you want to be able to collaborate. I won't go into the details of setting this all up. It's super simple. But if we move to the plan, you'll see we have nothing in the plan to start with. Maybe a good place to start is some templates. In your company, you might have a lot of BIM execution planning templates that you already have, and you can start by inputting these. If you don't already, and you want to use some from the standard warehouse, the library, if you hit the Use Templates button, This will open up the library on the left-hand side, and we can start to look at templates. I might be interested in adding strategic BIM goals, so I'm just going to drag and drop from the left-hand side and drop in. And I'm going to act as the plumber, so I'm going to be really interested in coordination, for example, so we can see what that might be, the BIM use. But yeah, I've been burned in the past, so project coordinates are a really important part, so I'm going to drag and drop that in as well.
Yep.
I'm going to close the library, and I can see you've already added a category.
So I'm actually adding a category on my laptop here. And let's say I wanted to add a training category.
Cool.
And now I'm going to pick from my own template. So I am on a different team on this project, help create this BIM execution plan. The collaboration on this can be very useful. Instead of one person doing this, there we go. So I'll bring in the BIM planning basics.
There we go.
That I found useful.
So Louis just brought this template, what we call a section in, about BIM planning basics. And it's actually loaded even with some videos, which is pretty powerful for a BIM execution plan to not only have the text, but also images, tables, videos, a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah, some have said that they've reduced the amount of pages.
Instead of having lots of pages, you just summarize it in a video. If I want to edit what Louis has just brought in, I can then go into whether it's resizing something or whatever we want to do. But what we're really interested in is having a workflow where now I'm happy with certain things and I can change it from being work in progress to being proposed. So if I change a couple of these, I'm now ready for Louis or some of the other team members to maybe comment on. So Louis, I can see him tapping out a comment and I can see that comment appearing, and then I can quite simply see, okay, yeah, great. These are our strategic BIM goals, much better than our last project. I like it.
Yeah, so this eliminates a lot of the administration burdens that we deal with when we have to email and get feedback and comment. Sometimes we feel like we have to review a 60-page document just because I received a 60-page document. But really what this promotes is a section-by-section collaboration and approval. So little by little can we go through this workflow and approve each section and then come back and have all of that in one location.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I could go on for hours about the detail on how we coordinate a project.
I'm sure you want to too.
But the whole principle is making it super simple to collaborate with others and to go through a commenting process that is integrated with the plan, the contract. I can see Louis adding some more. And then go through a work in progress, a proposed and a published status so that people can understand what it is that they're working on, what is proposed, what is actually published, etc. Please type your questions in the Q&A or into the chat, and we will answer them either as we go along or at the end as well. So that's a demonstration how we use online templates with a collection of either your own or some from the industry, and then how we can go through a communication and approval workflow with that content. Yes, we can create PDFs. Yes, we can have a documented and archived process along the way. Part 2 is about BIM scoping, and not just BIM scoping that is an abstract number or a difficult to understand interpretation. It's actually a much clearer, much more visual, much more easily communicated and agreed to workflow.
The architect, the contractor, they each have their own separate goals for BIM. So unless we align those goals, we could end up with any of the three models that we're looking at here. That miscommunication, someone's going to not have the information that they expected, and someone's going to be very unhappy. And that could be the owner, or it could be a contractor, or even a subcontractor who didn't know that they signed up for all of this information.
All of these are BIM?
Yep.
But which one do we need and how do we get there? Well, that's a challenge in itself, because there are so many different ways of defining purpose or what level of geometry or reliability or accuracy or how much information or data or parameters or which elements even should be there and why we're doing it all in the first place. There are so many different permutations of all of the different ways of specifying. It's a really difficult thing, especially to cram all of this into a one number, which the LOD scale historically was. We end up with either, on the left-hand side, not enough BIM, missing BIM, where you end up with scope gaps and teams are putting models together and maybe not finding clashes because some of the content hasn't been scoped and isn't there. Or we end up with that too much BIM, where we maybe have two people modeling the same thing. There's sometimes a handover that needs to be specified for a lighting fixture, for example. It might be the architect early on, it might be the electrical engineer at some point, it might be the contractor, it might be some other product manufacturer at some point throughout that workflow. So we end up with either not enough or too much. Let's get to the demo. First thing is to define exactly why we're going to do it. What's the goal for that? Some of that was part of the planning workflow, so we can look at the BIM uses that we select. Then we need to understand which elements are required at what stage in the project and how much information are we needing. Is there specific inclusions or exclusions? And then also who's responsible?
Yeah, these are 3 questions that we really need to answer for ourselves to really understand.
And many more as well. So let's take a look at the scope. We start off with a blank scope. So what do we do to start with? Well, again, we've got this library on the left-hand side, and I could just add from this library. There are thousands of elements for any type of project. But if I was to search, I'm the plumber, I remember. So if I search for plumbing, I can see there's plumbing equipment, and I can bring this group from the left to the right, and I could bring in pipes and etc. But maybe I've also done this before. As we saw before, there are templates. One template is just an example template that comes out of the box. And we can say, okay, I'm the plumber. I'm going to drag in plumbing scope, and I'm going to drop my plumbing scope. And that is going to include some of the things that I need. And then I'm able to maybe drag this. I'm going to drop this in this folder as well. We've got plumbing, and we've got cold water plumbing systems, bathroom systems, etc. Really, really simple to create a scope for my activities. These are things that I am really interested in. And I can see Louis has created, he's starting to create a mechanical folder, and he's going to bring in the mechanical content as well that he's interested in. So he drops that in, and we can see everything that he's brought in, HVAC distribution and outside air systems and everything else. Really, really powerful to be able to collaborate. I'm working on here and building my plumbing content, and you're working doing your HVAC.
Yeah, so again, this goes back to the first module, like the plan module, that collaborative piece where we can not only agree on the contract terms and milestones and deliverables and standards. Here we're actually agreeing on the scope. What is required for this milestone? Let's say this was for coordination purposes, and now Clive's setting up the coordination milestone. He's going to go through and assign the elements that he feels is going to be important, while I do the same for my team.
Yep. So do you, I can see Louis going in and doing this.
Yeah, instead of this being a one-person task, so we can ask each team to create and collaborate.
And I probably want them
and essentially agree on one scope.
And I want the clearances and maybe the points of connection. But on this project, I'm not so interested in the water filters, and the pumps we are going to manage later. So I can get to a set of plumbing equipment and then do the same here. For coordination, I'm going to model the risers, and this is also set defining the project settings, whether you want to use an LOD scale or not. And we could also assign with that scale, and maybe, because this is my plumbing team, so if we watertight plumbers, I can then start to assign this and start to create and assign these tasks together. I see Louis doing a whole bunch of that. He's much more quick on the draw. So there we go. I have created some tasks. Louis has created some tasks as well. And we're going to create a milestone for handover. Yep. So from an owner's perspective, that's great that you're creating a coordination milestone. But what we really want to know is what's going to be handed over. At the point in time when you can sit down with the owner and we add another milestone. And now what's important for the owner? Actually, the owner is only interested in the water heaters. That's it. And usually interested in information.
Yeah, we have so many customers that have come back and said that their meetings with their clients or even other team members, just to quickly go through, see what they actually need, add the information that's required on each of these items, has been not only been cut down by a lot, but they don't find themselves getting lost in that discussion of what does LOD 300 or LOD 400 actually mean, when you're just simply asking the question is this required? Is this needed for this purpose? and what information do we need?
So I clicked on this I up here, and now that we've said as an owner we would like the water heater to be part of the handover model, now I can also say which pieces of information. So I'll select these three. We do also have a big library of that content, that information. And then I can simply just click to assign. And now we can see that these three parameters are required on this item, this element at this milestone. So this is the purpose for handover model. And we can clearly define not everything with all of the parameters known to man, but actually just the things that the owner is interested in. And we've heard time and time again from users that this is a really streamlined way to reduce the amount of handover information for the owner from a BIM deliverable perspective. Yeah. We could talk more and more about the scoping, but let's move on to take a look at what's next. The third part is the best part. The best part is timelines that actually kind of manage themselves. Yes. We can see a whole load of questions building up. We will definitely get back to you if we can't answer them in the time that we have today. Goals. Defining goals and keeping assignment of all of those activities is really important. When we start with poor sequencing of those activities, you could end up in modeling something in the wrong way that would end up in a more costly outcome. So if we'd have prioritized this before we went and modeled it, it would have been the cable tray would have routed around the pipes. So let's take a look at the demo, how we auto-generate those tasks, how we are a team-based scheduling, and then how it's really simple to update. And we'll do that in no time at all. So we move to the track. And the track page, we have a timeline and we have a card view. And the timeline view has all of the tasks on this side. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter just for my team. There we go. I can see now just my tasks. And now Zach and I can drag these tasks in and I can start to assign. And I can say, this is going to be a 6-day task, 7-day, 15-day. I can start dragging these in and assigning them to our team members. Really, really simple, really quick. Just to do that, I can break this into more tasks if I wanted to. We can go into a lot more detail. Louis, I think, is also managing this, but it's the same timeline. So if I unfilter, oh, cool. Now I start to see where Louis' tasks are as well. Really, really powerful. I can see him updated. Very, very powerful to get to something that is a collaborative schedule and not being, see how quick that was to do? If everyone is sharing their work, how much easier is it? Yep, there we go. So Louis just split that task because he wants to manage it in more detail. Great. But what happens when we want to update these tasks? Is it tough to update this? Well, no. In the card view, we can do the same thing. So that filter, if I'd left it on, or maybe I actually want to just filter for my own tasks. And then I see the two tasks that I have. I see how long left I have on the tasks, and I can simply drag and drop them to update the status on these. Really clear, really simple, really quick, and everyone can manage their filtered views in their own way.
Yeah, this really helps those coordination meetings to get status updates of certain elements, content, systems, teams by person. So you can not only just filter all the way down to a person or see the entire project, but this really can be an internal meeting. See how your team's doing on these modeling tasks. See how we're doing on the coordination milestone, or how are we just simply doing on the handover milestone? How are those tasks being tracked? So we can, when project managers ask, are we at 50%, 60%? We might actually have an idea of what that actually means now because we have those percentages available. So that coordination meeting is now more targeted, a little bit more direct when it comes to updating these items.
Cool. So I just flicked to the docs to show you how we would create, and that's being able to define settings, to be able to create PDFs that are archived. Everything in this workflow is then shown as a document. Just to quickly recap, we looked at the plan, how we brought templates in from our library, and how we then were able to go through a proposing and publishing and commenting workflow, all in the same workflow. And then we looked at the scoping, how simple this was to create our own scope and be responsible for that before sign off, which can be printed as a document. We looked at how the handover is a lot leaner because it's now focused on the things and the information requirements that the owner is really interested in, not everything. And then we looked at the tracking in both a timeline view by dragging these tasks around and it being a collaborative effort rather than it being me dictating those things on others. So really it manages itself. And then being able to drag and drop these cards for showing my progress, and the project manager sees and can filter using a powerful filter to be able to see that. I think Louis just created a document. Great. So we've also got an output. Create much more than just an output, but you can see those in great detail. So what we saw was plan, scope, and track. 3 modules that are integrated to focus on the right thing rather than just creating documents and sending them via email. It's a collaborative environment that can contract to exactly what and understand who needs to be responsible, and then everyone manages it to completion. It was the BIM execution plan that doesn't gather dust. It was the scoping that's really visual and clear for everyone to understand. And it was there, the timeline that really it's team-based management. We promised, I don't know whether I remember, we promised that we would share some updates as far as a couple of new features that are coming next week. One of them in the scope, if you're like a company like Katera, who has thousands of lines and many milestones, we are increasing the speed on the scope by 4 times. It's really, really cool there. A new feature, one that has been requested, where if we don't have it in the thousands of library-based objects that we have, you can now pull it from your own or from a search. And there's a sprinkle of AI in here that actually will detect the object and remove this background. And now something that wasn't in the library is now in the library. So look out for that starting next week. We'll share some announcements. Please share more as we go through on the, let me turn our video back on. If I can reach. There we go. Please share more on the ideas board. We are super excited. Every time people vote or are adding new ideas, it really helps us to develop the product more and more. So please keep sharing those. And thank you very much. We 1 minute over and we didn't get to many of your questions, but we will get back to you individually and we will share some responses.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll look for you guys on the next webinar.
Thank you. Yeah, so much.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
See ya.